Capital One has been making some massive changes to their credit card ecosystem that is putting the pressure on Chase and American Express. So in this video, I'm going to talk about all the major changes and partnerships that Capital One has made in order to increase the strength of their credit card ecosystem. And at the end of the video, I'll also discuss the best combination of Capital One credit cards that is arguably the best credit card setup that you can possibly have. So without further ado, let's jump right into the video. Okay, so previously, Capital One has especially been known for being good for cash back and having a lot of different credit card options that are appealing for different types of people with different credit scores in different situations. But Capital One has been adding a lot of travel benefits as well that have increased the overall strength of the Capital One ecosystem to the point where we can realistically discuss whether Capital One is going to beat American Express and Chase. So if we get right into some of these new positive changes that Capital One has been implementing, the first change that I want to discuss is Capital One's partnership with Uber. Back in November of 2022, Capital One launched a partnership with Uber that is going to give a lot of benefits to Capital One Saver cardholders and Capital One Quicksilver cardholders as well. Basically, on the Capital One Saver or Capital One Saver One credit cards, you're going to get 10x back on Uber and Uber Eats, as well as a complimentary Uber One membership through the end of 2024. And that complimentary Uber One membership is going to give you perks like a $0 delivery fee for Uber Eats and discounts on Uber and Uber Eats as well. Also, if you are a college student and you're watching this video, then treat this as your opportunity because the Capital One Saver One student and the Quicksilver student are also going to get these Uber benefits as well, as you get 10x back on Uber and Uber Eats, and then you'll also get that complimentary Uber One membership. The reason that this Uber partnership is significant is because the Capital One Saver One does not have an annual fee, but despite that, this card is going to get all of those Uber benefits, which is pretty unheard of for a no annual fee credit card, especially when you consider that Chase has a partnership with DoorDash, but in order to get those DoorDash benefits, you have to have a Chase card that has an annual fee like the Chase Sapphire Preferred. All right, the next major change to Capital One credit cards that is going to increase the value of the Capital One ecosystem is going to be the introduction of the Capital One Premier Hotel Collection. The Capital One Premier Hotel Collection was launched in early 2023, and you are given access to this collection if you have either the personal or business Capital One Venture X. Capital One launched this luxury hotel collection to compete with other programs that are already in existence with Chase and American Express, and Capital One did not disappoint because Capital One's hotel collection will give you guaranteed benefits such as a $100 experience credit, daily breakfast for two, free Wi-Fi, and then the potential for other benefits such as free room upgrades, and then early check-in and late checkout. To speak on some of those benefits, that $100 experience credit is going to be huge because you'll basically get a free of $100 in value to spend at hotel restaurants or hotel spas. But to get the maximum value from this credit, you want to make sure that you're using the experience credit for purchases that you would have already spent money on anyways, such as food. The daily breakfast for two is also going to be a good benefit that can save you some money as well. And then the early check-in and late checkout is actually a surprisingly good benefit because it can save you a lot of hassle from having to carry around your luggage all around the city while you're waiting for your flight. Or if your flight gets in early, you don't have to wait around before you can check in. According to Capital One, all hotels in the Premier Collection should be one-of-a-kind luxury hotels and resorts that are each packed with personality and hand-picked with exceptional quality. So these hotels are going to be very high-end, and Capital One already does have a lot of properties in some major cities in both the US and internationally, but there still are a lot of popular travel destinations that don't yet have Capital One properties. But this program was just recently introduced, so I expect there to be a lot of growth and added properties to the Capital One Premier Hotel Collection in the future. Always make sure to check for price differences for booking these properties directly or using Capital One to book through the Premier Hotel Collection, but also make sure that you consider some of the benefits that you get with the Premier Hotel Collection, such as that $100 experience credit that can get you a lot of value. Ultimately, Capital One's new Premier Hotel Collection has a lot of similar benefits to the programs with American Express and Chase, and this new hotel collection is a positive benefit for the Capital One ecosystem that is going to put the pressure on other credit card issuers. All right, the next aspect of the Capital One ecosystem that I want to discuss is going to be the introduction and expansion of Capital One travel lounges. Capital One launched their lounge network in late 2021 with the introduction of their first airport lounge at the Dallas airport. And now in 2023, we have two new Capital One lounges at the Denver and Washington, D.C. airports. With the Capital One Venture X card, you'll get complimentary visits to Capital One lounges for yourself plus two guests, and you'll get 2 complimentary visits if you have the regular Capital One Venture Card or the Capital One Business Spark Miles Card. I have not been to one personally, but I have heard that Capital One lounges are really nice, with upscale food and drinks, a relaxation room, exercise and yoga room, coffee bar, shower suite, and more. Plus, it normally costs $65 to gain access to a Capital One lounge, so especially on the Venture X, where you get 4 free authorized users, having complimentary access to Capital One lounges is going to be really clutch. Overall, Capital One lounges are still limited in the amount of options that they offer, but they are planning to expand their network in the future, with rumors for a new lounge in Las Vegas. And even though Capital One lounges aren't nearly as expansive as something like American Express Centurion lounges, the fact that Capital One is adding their own lounge network just points to all the positive changes that is going on in the Capital One ecosystem. The next positive change to the Capital One ecosystem is that they've continued to add new travel partners and also increase the value of the transfer ratios for those travel partners. Basically, ever since Capital One started their travel partner program in 2018, they've continued to add more travel partners and then also increase the value of the transfer ratios for those travel partners, because a lot of those ratios used to not be very good at like 2 to 1. But now Capital One has 18 different hotel and airline travel partners, in which many of them allow you to transfer your Capital One miles at a 1-to-1 ratio. And some of Capital One's travel partners are high redemption value partners, such as Air Canada, Avianca, Virgin Atlantic, and Turkish Airlines. Plus, Capital One does have Aeromexico as a travel partner, which isn't typically the highest redemption value partner, but Chase does not have Aeromexico, and I've actually flown on Aeromexico twice in the past year to go to Guadalajara and Mexico City, and my fiance is Mexican, and my goal is to become fluent in Spanish in the next couple of years, so I'll definitely be flying Aeromexico many times in the future, and so having this as a travel partner is a huge plus for me. All right, but now let's get into the Capital One Bifecta, which is increasing in popularity and is arguably the best credit card setup that you can possibly have. Also, if you've made it this far in the video, then comment down below March Madness, because I'm really pumped for the games to start. The Capital One Bifecta consists of the Capital One Venture X, which has an annual fee of $395, as well as the Capital One Saver 1, which does not have an annual fee, which brings the total cost for the setup to $395. If we put these cards side by side and take a look at their point multipliers, the Bifecta is going to get some fantastic multipliers when you consider that the Venture X is going to get multipliers of 10x back on hotels and car rentals, and 5x back on flights that are all booked through the Capital One travel portal, as well as 2x back on everything else. And then the Saver 1 is going to get multipliers of 3x back on dining, entertainment, popular streaming services, and grocery stores, plus 1x back on everything else. So when you combine these two cards, the multipliers for this setup are going to cover common spend categories like dining, grocery stores, and travel, with your floor being increased because you'll get 2x back on every purchase that you make. Additionally, the Capital One Bifecta is going to give you more travel benefits than the fee that you pay on this card, as you'll get a $300 annual travel credit and 10,000 bonus miles every single year on the Capital One Venture X. And then, as I mentioned previously, the Saver 1 is also going to get you that complimentary Uber One membership. Basically, the Capital One Bifecta is a good hybrid option because it has a lower fee than the AMEX Trifecta, but then more travel benefits than the $95 version of the Chase Trifecta. Also, I'm thinking about making a full video on the Capital One Bifecta, so if you're interested in me making that video, then let me know down in the comments. In conclusion, Capital One has a lot of things going for them and have significantly increased the value of their credit card ecosystem. But as of now, I still think that Chase and American Express reign supreme, but some of that is because a lot of these positive changes are still in the early stages of growth for the Capital One ecosystem, and I expect them to continue making positive changes going forward. Also, the fact that Capital One is putting the pressure on with these improvements is just good for us as credit card users as well, because it just means that a lot of credit card issuers might take a look at that and think that they need to upgrade their credit card ecosystems as well. I did actually make a full video going over the Capital One Venture X, which I think is the #1 credit card for 2023. So if you want to watch that video, I'll put it up on the screen right now. Thank you all so much for watching this video, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Peace.